Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, friends, welcome. So I'd like to give a talk today on the topic of happiness. So happiness is something that everyone you know is looking for, right? It's something that we all want. It's something that wise beings, wise sages, wise, insightful beings, people who go to the woods, philosophers, all kinds of many types of people throughout history have tried to figure out how to be happy. What's the best things to do to be happy? Some have even tried to think about what happiness actually is. What is happiness to this human being? That's the question, isn't it? So I can talk a little bit about this from the Buddhist perspective, which is the reason why I'm giving this talk. So think about in society. Now, of course, different cultures have different goals, different ideals, different modes of what they consider to when somebody has reached happiness. Right? In modern culture, right, or in the West, one of the things that we think of is if we only had enough money, then we wouldn't have any problems. We wouldn't have anything to worry about. We'd be happy. If we only had this, if we only had that, we need more of this, more of that, then we'd be happy. If the government was only such and such a way, if this person was in power instead of that person, if people acted such and such a way and not the other way, then we'd be happy. We put a lot of expectations on the world, on the people around us, thinking and hoping and expecting that all of these things should be a certain way. And once they are a certain way, then guess what? I'll be happy. Even many rulers in human history have said, well, if we had this certain government and we did this, then everybody would be happy. And of course, they had to kill and do a lot of bad things to chasing after that goal, that we'd all be in a happy utopia where nobody would want for anything. Everybody would be in just happy, peaceful bliss all the time. So we can think, well, happiness means that everything goes the way I want it to go. Do you have friends, family members, or siblings where you worry about saying certain things around them or wanting to do certain things because you know they'll get angry because it goes against the way they want things? They won't be happy. Right, you become held hostage by the supposed happiness of another being. So far, all of the different ways that we think about how we can be happy have a lot of stuff dependent on it, doesn't it? Things have to be such and such a way. on many different levels, and then we'll be happy. That's a lot to ask from the world, isn't it? It's a lot. Because how much power do you have to do all of that? Even if you were president, ruler, dictator of the whole world, do you think you could actually achieve it? My bet is no, you couldn't. Because we're, as we say in America, barking up the wrong tree. Chasing after these things, material goods, conditions in the world, all of these things, chasing after these things don't bring us lasting happiness. No matter how hard we try. And this is part of the Buddha's message. Right? Of course, there are things that bring us happiness to a certain extent in the world. We find somebody who we want to spend the rest of our lives with, and we get married. And let's even say that you're one of the rare people who you stay married, and maybe you're married even for 50 years. Eventually, there's death. There's separation. Right? This is where the Buddha is talking about impermanence. Even if we have achieved a certain state where we say, okay, now we're happy. Well, nothing stays the same forever. Something might happen where you lose whatever you've put your condition of happiness on, and when that goes away, your happiness goes away. Buddha tells us, be a refuge unto yourself, with no other refuge. The Dhamma as your refuge, with no other refuge. What is he saying here? Buddha is telling us that you cannot find any kind of permanent, lasting contentment or happiness outside. In people, places, experiences, worldly conditions. Buddha is saying all of these things are impermanent. They're subject to change. So if you rest your happiness on those things, what happens when they change? Your happiness goes away. You suffer. Right? So it's very important as Buddhist practitioners that we reflect on these conditions. So say if you're married and you have a family, spouse and children, Buddha is not telling you, you shouldn't like them, you shouldn't love them, you shouldn't try to do anything for them, you should abandon them and become a monk. No, Buddha is not saying that. What Buddha is saying though is, because you have dear ones, because you have these people who you've taken on as responsibility in your life, they will change. They might stop, wanting to be with you. The children grow up and then they go away, right? They have the children of their own. And so we suffer because of that change, right? And they have this thing called empty nest syndrome, right? Where the children are now adults, out on their own. And in modern society, that means maybe different countries or different places so far away, right? And the parents feel that emptiness, that now that their children are gone. Now, you still think about with happiness, you think, oh, okay, my child is doing well. This is their job. Now they have their own kids and I get to see my grandkids. And there's still happiness there. But the happiness and the joy that you had having your children close is not there anymore. You were together for a time and now you're not. That's the nature of this life. So if you're relying on, maybe you know people who always try to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and they're never alone, right? Because they're always trying to, oh, this boyfriend or girlfriend is not making me happy. I got to get a better one, right? And then they just jump from girlfriend to boyfriend to the next and the next and the next. What are they trying to do? They're trying to find some kind of happiness, long-lasting, stable, permanent happiness in that person. And when things change, their happiness changes. Their happiness goes away. So the Buddha tells us that true, lasting happiness and contentment can only come within. We have to develop it for ourselves, not reliant on others. And the interesting thing is, the trick is that once you find that happiness and that contentment within yourself, you actually can be with others better. You can be a better spouse, a better parent, right? Because you're not trying to use another person for your happiness. Your happiness is here already. And because you have lots of it, you can actually help spread it. Right? So this is not necessarily about abandoning our dear ones. Right? So we should make sure that this misconception is cleared up. But we should also not fool ourselves into thinking that something, maybe the food or drugs or the next video game or the next this or the next that, the next TV show, that is the one thing that'll finally bring me happiness. Because it won't. Somebody who has developed insight and wisdom in the Dhamma, they can understand, they can enjoy something for the time it's there. They say, okay, this is a very nice show. This is a very nice, dinner. This is a very nice ice cream, whatever it is, right? A very nice relationship. And then when the time comes that it ends, the show is over, the ice cream is done, all these things, because the happiness is here, because the happiness is within, they won't suffer because of the ending of that activity, because of the ending of that relationship. Right? They'll say, this is how things are, this is the nature of things. Your happiness is still there, it's not affected by the loss of this person or this item, this experience. This is the one thing that I found in my own relationships as a layperson and also working with lots of people in my careers in the past. Can go for a romantic relationship, but also a friendship. Right? What I've seen is a lot of times there's like a stick in the ground, right? And usually a relationship, two people in a relationship, again, romantic, friendship, whatever, even parent and child. Now, sometimes they're like this. What does that mean? They're relying on each other. right? They're leaning on each other. If one falls, the other falls. Right? Some relationships are like this. One person is firm, secure, stable, happiness within themselves, and the other person is leaning on them. Right? And that actually can be quite oppressive, quite overwhelming to the person who is secure and stable. Right? Oh, these people are leaning on me. Like they think that their happiness only comes because of me, and I have to meet certain expectations, etc., etc., etc. Right? But then there's relationships that are like this: two firmly grounded poles, secure in their own happiness. And guess what? They can be tied together like a rope comes around them, and they can have happiness in that being together, but they also have their own happiness that they built within themselves, their own contentment, their own peace. Right? That when that bond breaks, sure, it will be sad, and they will feel a loss, but it will not affect their happiness because they're happy within themselves. So this is something that's very important to understand. This is something that is a natural progression. If you follow the totality of the Noble Eightfold Path, this is what will arise in you. You will find a happiness and a contentment within yourself. You will be content if nobody is around you, and you'll be content if there's 100 people around you. That's a more secure, stable happiness, isn't it? So, in terms of Buddhism, what do we think of as happiness? Right? There's two Pali words. There's dukkha and sukha. Dukkha, in the grand scheme, the high scheme, we think about dukkha is our suffering, which keeps us in samsara. But and in a more mundane way, dukkha and sukha. Dukkha is unpleasantness, unhappiness. Sukha is pleasantness, happiness. So we develop sukha by practicing the Dhamma. We develop our minds through generosity, through morality, through restraint, through investigation and meditation. We develop our minds. And we start to see things as they are. And because we start to see things as they are, we start to understand and accept that this is nature. That all things arise must cease. That all things are changing. And you stop trying to control other people. You stop trying to control the world. And you have peace and contentment. You've started more and more and more to let go of your craving, to let go of your desire and thirst. Things should be a certain way. Instead of fighting against everything, instead of trying to force things, you let go. And you let be. And sometimes when you do something, it's like a gentle push, then a force. Right? Because you have the wisdom and the insight to see that instead of fighting against something, sometimes there's just a gentle breeze that's needed, and then something good can come out of it. The more we let go of our craving, the more happiness and contentment, the less chasing after things, the less sadness and pain when things change, when people go away, when you no longer experience things that you like, or when you have to experience things that you don't like. Your greed for a good thing, for pleasant things, and your hatred towards unpleasant things lessen. Less and less and less greed and hatred. Less delusional seeing, delusional thinking. As we start to slowly abandon our ignorance, abandon our greed, hatred, and delusion, what arises? Wisdom, peace, contentment, freedom. And that is the truest happiness, the highest happiness, the highest bliss. Freedom from suffering, freedom from samsara. Until then, we practice developing a happiness and a contentment and a peace gradually, slowly within ourselves. Understanding that we cannot rely on a person, a place, an experience, a thing to give us full, lasting happiness. We have to build that and develop it within ourselves, and then we can share that with others instead of being reliant on others for it. Because very few people actually have that within. Most of us are trying to find it with some external reason, external way, through another person, through money, through an item, through an experience. All of these different ways. So friends, I encourage you to be an island unto yourself. Practice the Dhamma, practice the Noble Eightfold Path, and develop that secure peace and contentment within yourself. And when you do, nobody can take it away from you. No one, no external feature, no external experience, another person, nobody can take that away from you because it's in your mind. You know, there's experiences, there's people like Viktor Frankl, who was a Jewish person who survived the Nazi camps, right? Or Solzhenitsyn, who's a Russian person who survived the gulags in Soviet Russia, right? And they talk about developing something in their mind, an internal wisdom, an internal peace, right? Maybe not a happiness because it wasn't a pleasant experience, but an internal peace and contentment that nobody could take away from them, right? So that tells you that even in the hardest, roughest, worst experiences, you can develop that peace and contentment, and it can be in there with you, no matter what another person does to you, no matter what something happens outside, it's there. It's secure. It's not going away. And isn't that a wonderful goal? Isn't that something that we all really want? Okay? But most of us are just looking in the wrong place. We follow the Buddhist teaching and we'll find the right place. Okay, friends? With that, I wish you a very good day. Thank you.